I want to get into some potential changes that could be made hypothetically. And there's one that you've written an article about recently, endorsing a bill in Massachusetts that would hypothetically lower the voting age down to 16. Tell me about that plan and why you're endorsing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is one of the reforms that goes beyond kind of the most immediate reforms, like AVR, same-day registration, restoration of voting rights to those incarcerated. But lowering the voting age has always been really interesting to me because 18, if you really think about it, is a terrible year to be integrated into the political process. A lot of folks are going to college, maybe they're becoming independent for the first time, they're getting their first job. There's a lot of changes when you're 18, and so lowering the voting age to 17 or 16 could be a really strong way to increase youth participation because voting is habitual. We know that the first time you vote, it makes it more likely that you vote a second time, a third time. And so if we can get people into the political process a little bit earlier while they're still under the auspices of their parents, while they're still kind of integrated into a community before they're independent, I think there's a lot of promise here. And we see this with, in the primary so far, youth turnout has been good, but it's still not where it should be. Yeah. And so this is one of the things that as we're looking forward to HR 1 and beyond, I've just become convinced that if we can just lower it to 17, 16, it could have some real transformative impacts on the electorate.
Yeah, and look, I think you perfectly lay out the sort of pragmatic case and the case for increased participation from doing this, but also in your article you have a reference to what I would say is sort of the moral case for this, which is the consequences of our decisions on a host of matters from climate change to economic policy will affect them the longest. Don't we want their voice in our democracy? Which I think it makes so much sense because we're dealing with issues like what's gonna happen with the climate crisis, and almost universally the people who are deciding are people who are not going to see the results of this plan.
Right, exactly. And you see, the Sunrise Movement, the remarkable activism by these people who are not even 18 yet. They're leading the dialogue on the existential question of our times about the very health and of our planet. And they're the ones driving that discussion. And so people will always counter to me and say, oh, well, young people, have you ever met a 16-year-old? Yes, I've worked alongside them in the trenches of democracy reform, in the trenches of environmental, preventing climate change. I've been nothing but impressed with the amazing talent that young people have. And we should be welcoming them into the political process, not trying to say, oh, they're too stupid to participate, because that's just not the experience most people have with younger individuals.
Yeah, and if someone is watching this and hasn't paid much attention to some of these activists, I want to reassure them that it's not just that they will be affected by these issues more or that they have more passion for these issues. If you listen to Greta speak, if you talk with Varshini Prakash, they understand these issues. They understand the science of these issues, the likely consequences of action and inaction far better than I've heard the vast majority of senators or elected representatives of any form. So they also have the knowledge, and I think thus the knowledge to vote in an informed way about these things.
That's exactly right. And the bill in Massachusetts would allow localities to lower the voting age for local elections. This is going to be a long-term fight. This is not something that's going to happen in 2021. But I'm really interested to see localities and states push the ball forward on this topic because I do think that this could be a real moment of transformation. The voting age was lowered to 18 during the Vietnam War, and there was a real crisis then. And now, as my colleague Josh Douglas and I, as we wrote in the article that you're talking about, as we say, today there's a new crisis, and that's climate change. And so whether or not we move to expand the electorate in the age of this crisis remains to be seen. But as far as I'm concerned, I think it would be a valuable step for our democracy.
Adam, as always, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody watching, please go take a look at that article available on Commonwealth Magazine. Adam, we really appreciate it. For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.